What's up, you guys? We're just going to go through the UFC 310. Just do a little recap of all the fights, starting with the early prelims, work through the prelims, and then we'll do a little bit more in-depth breakdown of the main card. So starting it off, we had Kennedy versus Lucas Bresky. Kennedy looked about as I expected, started a little bit slower than I expected, but still got the first round finish. Late in the first round, finished him with strikes. I think he looks a lot better at heavyweight than he does at light heavyweight. I think he benefited from the move up with not having the weight cut, having the bigger frame, being able to fill out a little bit in heavyweight. So I think that was a good move for him. Second fight at heavyweight, second win. The first one was a little iffy just because of the injury, but he was looking like he was going to win that fight before, even though the injury, it happened during the intros, but he was looking good before Barnett wasn't actually capable to fight him anymore. So yeah, I think the move up to heavyweight was good for Kennedy in general. 2-0 so far at heavyweight. I think he'll be able to move up into some ranked opposition soon. Maybe not quite yet, but he'll definitely be able to move up. He's got a good skill set for heavyweight. And so yeah, I think that was a good move for him. Good overall fight, and that was about it. Kind of went how I thought it was going to. The next fight on the early prelims was Chase Hooper and Clay Guida. Chase Hooper, I'm really high on. He looked really good. He looked really improved again. His striking looks like it's coming together even more. He's able to control distance better. He looked like he was able to put cleaner combinations together. He didn't look like a full striker, but I mean, he has a grappling background. He is mainly a grappler. And if he can put some striking together, that's all he's going to need. He doesn't need amazing striking if he has amazing grappling. He just needs good striking to be able to put together his amazing grappling. And that's kind of what happened. He was able to get a submission round one. He got a pretty nasty armbar. It was a really nice setup on Guida. It was a really fun grappling exchanges to watch between the two. I mean, it only lasted for the first round, but it was still some fun exchanges. Chase Hooper looks really good on the ground. He got his fourth win in a row. Starting a little streak in the lightweight division. It's one of the tougher divisions. He's kind of on a quiet little streak. And Chase is basically a UFC vet at this point. I mean, he's 25, but he has 10 fights in the UFC. He's been in the UFC for 6 years. He's involved in the company. And so he's maturing well with the UFC. And I think that he's going to turn out to be a real problem in the lightweight division, honestly. I'm really high on Chase Hooper. I think he's really good. And he's not fighting quite the opposition that, he's not fighting like top 15 fighters yet, but he still is only 25. He's got time before he's in his fighting prime. Like he's growing in the UFC and he's growing really well. He's improving, four win streak, 4 fight win streak, like I said, and he's improved every one of those fights. So he's looked really good. That's about it for that fight. Chase looked really good. I think that Guida should probably retire. He's getting up there in age. I think that he's 40, maybe even older than that. He's getting up there. I think he could have some fun doing some grappling matches with the UFC. I know they do those on Fight Pass, and he's been involved with those before. So I think he could continue to do things like that. But I think as for like UFC, I think that he should probably retire. He's getting up there. He's getting older, and no reason to take unnecessary damage, honestly. He's had a good career, and like I said, he could still be involved with like the Fight Pass grappling cards. So that was about it for that one. The next fight up was Michael Chiesa and Max Griffin. It was a slower fight on the feet. Chiesa isn't known for his grappling. He uses his isn't known for his striking. He uses his striking to get to his grappling. Definitely misspoke there. But yeah, it was a little bit slower for the first 2 rounds. Chiesa was able to get some grappling in, a lot of control on the fence. Wasn't quite able to get to the positions that he wanted to. And then round 3 came through. He was able to get a takedown, get to the back, and get a signature rear naked choke finish. Max Griffin didn't look amazing, but, Chiesa looked pretty good, honestly, for being mid-30s. And he said if he was feeling good, he wanted to fight on that Seattle card, which I think would be fun. I think there could be a fun matchup for him. I'm not too sure who, but I think they could make a fun matchup for him on the main card of that fight night in Seattle, especially being that he fights out of Spokane, just that Washington area. That'd be cool. It's where he grew up fighting, or worked his way up fighting. I think that'd be really cool. And so, yeah, that was about it for that one. Griffin didn't look too great. Chiesa honestly looked pretty good, and I hope he gets on that Seattle card. It'd be fun to see him again. And on to the next fight. I was terribly wrong about this fight. It was Van and Durden. I had picked Durden initially. And when the fight first started, Durden, he was implementing his grappling kind of how I thought he was going to. He looked pretty good, and then Van was able to get up, and He found his range and his timing pretty quickly against Durden, and then he was able to start defending the takedowns well, and he was landing to the head, to the body. His boxing was looking really crispy. He was, yeah, like I said, he was going high, going low. He had Durden's timing from basically the mid first round all the way through, and it really wasn't too competitive after that. Joshua Van looks really good. He's really young. Like I said in my previous video, I just started watching him this year, and I probably won't pick against him unless it's a certain few fighters. Like Joshua Van looked really good against Durden, and I know Durden isn't necessarily top five competition, but Joshua Van's also really young. He's got a lot of developing that he's going to do, and he looked really good for how young he is and how young he is in the division. He looked really good. So, yeah, great performance by Joshua Van. Durden is tough as all get out, but usually when you're talking about how tough someone is, it's because they were getting beat up, and he was definitely getting beat up pretty good. But yeah, he took it, and yeah, Van's legit, that's for sure. And Durden's a savage. We knew that Durden was tough, and yeah, went to decision. Van ends up winning the decision. He got a 10-8 round, and he won all three rounds on one judge's scorecard, and then he won 2 rounds to one on another judge's scorecard, and then 3-0 on another. So pretty inconsistent judging, and it was like that throughout the night, but definitely the rightful winner that on that fight. And that was about it for that one. On to the next one was Eric Anders and Chris Weidman. And honestly, Weidman just didn't look too great. He just did not look too great. Anders looked pretty good, but I mean, Weidman got out grappled. He got out controlled on the ground. He was getting out struck. And it kind of just looks like Father Time's gotten him. And that leg injury definitely didn't help with that at all. I mean, it was like 30 surgeries. He was out for 2.5 years. I was actually at that fight when he broke his leg, and it was nasty. The whole arena went silent. It was nasty, and I'm surprised he even came back from it at all. Looking back at it, I kind of wish he had retired, and I had thought this at the time too. I wish he had retired after that win against Bruno Silva, kind of end on the top. Weidman was actually the first person I ever saw fight live. Saw him and Silva, so I really like Weidman, but I think it's just I think it's his time to hang him up. And I'm not too sure if he will, but Dana had also said that after the press conference. I think it's just kind of his time to hang him up. I'm not too sure where you go with Anders after this, but Anders gets the TKO finish in round two. Weidman just really didn't look too great there, so I don't have too much more on that fight. The next fight was to open up the prelims, and I was pretty excited about this fight. And in my opinion, it underdelivered a little bit. In my opinion, it was Battle versus Randy Brown. Battle ended up edging it by split decision. I expected there to be a lot more exchanging on the feet. I expected Battle to kind of build in the boxing and the striking a little bit more against Brown, and there was just a lot more cage control. That's really what won him the fight, was that cage control. I think Randy Brown landed the more significant strikes. I think he was landing the bigger strikes, but Battle was able to just kind of control him against the cage. It was a split decision on that one. I saw why Battle won it, but personally, I think that Randy Brown, even with the control, I think Brown did more damage overall. I think he did more in the fight. So I could have seen it going either way. I understand why it was a split decision, but I do understand why Battle got it. He's still great on the mic, got on the mic. He was great on the mic. That is one thing that he's great at. I thought after this fight they'd push him into some tougher competition in the top 15, but I'm not too sure exactly where they're going to go with him after this. Maybe lower in the rankings or right outside the rankings again, kind of somewhere in that range. Thought if he got a convincing win here that he'd be able to push up into the rankings pretty quickly. But with the win that he got, I don't think that it kind of catapults him. I think he loses a little bit of that hype that he was building behind him, but that all changes in one fight. So if he goes back out there and knocks someone out next fight, he's got that hype right back behind him. So I'm not too sure where they go with him here, but yeah, it was good. It was a good fight overall. I mean, not the most exciting fight, that's for sure. A lot of cage control, but Brian Battle edged the decision against Randy Brown, and that was after the weight miss too. So, people aren't going to talk about that a couple years down the road, but that, in my opinion, does play a part into it. Cage control, there was a weight miss. And yeah, I get it was a quick turnaround for Battle, the quickest he's done at welterweight in his career, but also you're a professional, you get paid to make weight. So it's always a little bit tough, but yeah, that's about it for what I have on that fight. The next fight should have been on the main card, really. You could have replaced the Nate the Train fight or the Bryce Mitchell fight with this fight. It was Movsar and Aljo. It was a good fight. It was not a like striking battle, obviously, but it was a really fun grappling match. I really enjoyed watching it actually. I thought Aljamain looked really good against someone like Movsar, who's a bigger guy, also a grappler. I could have seen him scoring it either way, but I understand why Movsar got the edge. It was kind of just those like staying busy punches when he had control, whereas Aljamain was more just controlling. I think Aljamain was winning the exchanges on the feet, and he was actually out grappling Movsar for the most part. He had more takedowns, and I do believe he had more control time overall in the fight. But like I said, it was when Movsar had control, it was more towards the end of the round. He was really good at kind of stealing the judge's eyes at the end of the round, and then also just staying busy with just not like damaging punches, but just punches for visuals. Like he was just staying a little bit busier on top. So yeah, it was a good fight. Mobsar by unanimous decision, 2 rounds to 1, which I could have seen it going 2 rounds to 1 either way. So it was a great fight. Aljamain, I think you could go with like a Brian Ortega matchup. He did come out today on a podcast and say he wasn't too sure what he wants to do after this. He was kind of talking about possibly retiring, which I could also see because he does have to climb that ladder again. This is just kind of a step back. And that's what he was talking about is he doesn't want to climb that ladder again at 35. And featherweight's also a really tough division. It's a tough ladder to climb, and there's kind of a line for the belt right now. Not necessarily a line, but I think Volk's going to get it next, and then you have possibly Lopez getting it next, or Movsar and Lopez fighting for it next, or fighting for who gets it next, something along those lines. So there's kind of already, 1 or 2 people in line. So I'd be curious to see what Aljo does here. I think that a Brian Ortega fight would be fun. I know he had talked about moving up to lightweight, but I think that would also be kind of a fun match for him. Not someone that presents like a crazy striking threat. Would be another fun grappling matchup, kind of like this one. I think Aljamain's a more well-rounded grappler, but Ortega's got better jiu-jitsu. So I think that'd be a really fun one. As for Movsar, I think that you go with like a Lopez rematch here. If Volk's getting the title shot, I think that him and Lopez could fight to see who's after that. If Lopez is getting the next title shot, I mean, I don't know if you give him to someone like Volk. Like, I don't think they do that to Volk, honestly, because Movsar is just not the most exciting fighter. He's not the biggest name. I don't know if they would do that, but possibly. But honestly, I think Volk's going to get that next shot. So I think that you go Diego Movsar and Volk Ilya if that's the case. So I think that's kind of where they should go with that one. But yeah, that's about it for that one. Really fun grappling matchup. And then let's see, we got 2 more fights that were on the prelims. We had the Luque and Garimba fight, and I was terribly wrong about this one too. It was just a vintage Vicente Luque performance. I'd picked Garimba just based off of Luque's last couple of fights. He just wasn't looking like the Luque of old, getting into firefights, nasty chokes, kind of some really good dirty boxing in close. He just really wasn't looking the Luque of old, but I mean, he came out there, landed a big punch that wobbled Grimbo like pretty much immediately in close. That kind of dirty boxing style. Forced the grappling scenario straight into Anaconda choke, like 51 seconds. I think it was the fastest Anaconda choke in UFC history. And he looked great. I mean, there was nothing else to say. Not too sure where they go with the Garimbo after this or Luque after this, but Luque did look really good. Got the performance bonus. So good on Luque. It was good to see him coming back into full form and maybe see him start to maybe work his way up the rankings a little bit again because he is fun to watch. When he is on, Luque is really fun to watch. So that was good to see. Yeah, so the next fight we have Reyes and Anthony Smith, and there's not a whole lot to say about this fight. I mean, Reyes looked good, but I'm sure we all heard what happened with Smith and his friend passing like a couple weeks before the fight, and he just wasn't all the way in it. He didn't look like he was all the way in it. He was just letting Reyes punch him in the face, and ended up just kind of being on the ground for most of the second round, just eating strikes. I'm surprised the referee didn't stop it sooner, but yeah, I mean, I think after this one, Smith should probably retire, and he talked about that in the ring, and I think he probably will eventually retire after this fight. I don't think he'll fight again. He's got a good career in media. He's got his podcast. He works for the UFC. He's got good things going on to still stay involved in the sport. And I just don't think he has the fight in him anymore. And especially with just losing his friend, he even said it himself. He doesn't know if he can make the walk without him. And so I think that's probably the last time we see Lionheart. All respect, he's an OG. He's had like 60 fights. I know a lot of people don't like how he talks because like on paper I beat John Jones, on paper I beat so and so. But you got to respect. He's been around for a bit. He did fight for a title, and he does fight the who's who. I mean, he fights savages. Whoever he's offered, he fights, and so you got to respect him for that. But I think this will probably be his last fight, and best of luck in his media career. But yeah, Reyes gets the win, TKO second round here. He's on a good little win streak here. He's starting to come back, maybe get a little bit of confidence back. That's two finishes in a row. So, I think that's good for Reyes. Start moving him up in the rankings a little bit. And maybe there's not a ton of action at the top of light heavyweight right now. So if he gets, two more good wins, he could be right back in the title picture with two more good wins. So yeah, good on Reyes. And we'll see what he gets next. So yeah, now we're on to the main card. They kicked it off with Choi and Nate the Train. And really, like I said earlier, I think that Aljo could have been in replacement of this one or the Bryce one. Probably the Bryce one, more likely. This was a fun fight to open the main card, honestly. Say keep this one, move that Bryce one and the Aljo one. But yeah, this was a fun fight to open the main card. Choi put it on Nate the Train. I had picked Nate the Train. But yeah, Choi just put it on him. He had his timing from the get go. He was rocking him early and often. He was able to defend Nate the Train's grappling exchanges, and he just looked great. He ended up finishing him in round three, TKO. And yeah, Nate the Train's tough, but he just couldn't take all the punishment. That's about all I have to say on that one. Choi was an up and comer at one point, and then he kind of got derailed, but he looked good. I think he's on a 2 or 3 fight win streak now. He looked good in that fight. We'll see where they go with him next. And Nate the Train's just always going to be in fun fights, so we'll see what fun fight we get with him next. On to the next one. It was Bryce Mitchell and Kron Gracie. And really, this one should have been on the prelims, like I said, but it was the UFC just kind of fed Kron to Bryce, in my opinion. Bryce got a nasty elbow finish in the third round, I do believe. Kron kept pulling guard, and Bryce actually almost got caught in an armbar, but defended it well, and he knew what he was going up against. He didn't really have too much of a striking threat. It was more of a grappling threat. And he even said himself after the fight he wasn't really planning on grappling with him until Kron was just pulling guard. And then that kind of backfired. Kron jumped up, tried to pull guard in the third, and Bryce slammed him and framed a nasty elbow and flattened him out. So, yeah, I mean, all respect to Kron and the Gracies, but I just don't think that his name should warrant him a UFC contract at this point. I get that the Gracies started the UFC. Maybe, like I said, with like a Guida, like a grappling tournaments or grappling matches on UFC Fight Pass, things like that for Kron would be really fun because he has elite jiu-jitsu. I mean, he is a Gracie. He is extremely elite jiu-jitsu, but he just doesn't have a UFC skill set anymore. Being that much of a specialist with like little to zero striking and elite jiu-jitsu just doesn't work in the UFC anymore because everyone's got some knowledge of jiu-jitsu and some knowledge of striking, so it just doesn't work to have that big of a hole in your game anymore. As for Bryce, I'm glad he got a win on this one. We'll see where they go with him after this. I liked his mindset after the win. He wasn't like too happy. It was kind of a cool mindset. If you go watch his interview with Megan Olivi, I did like that interview. So yeah, go check that one out. But yeah, other than that, I think that's it for that fight. Like I said, I think they just kind of fed Kron to Bryce, got Bryce a nice win there, got a nasty elbow finish in the third. And then the next fight, I think we all have to agree, was just terrible. I mean, Gon thought he lost. Everyone in the arena thought Gon lost. Everyone watching at home thought Gon lost. And he won a split decision somehow. I mean, I don't know how, honestly. Like, you could have given all 3 rounds to Volkov. You could have given the first round to Gon, but I don't see how you give 2 rounds to Gon. And Gon did break his foot in the first, he said, and I saw the x ray today and it looked pretty nasty, but he just didn't look that good. He got outstruck on the feet by Volkov, he got out grappled by Volkov, and he just did not look great. Volkov looked much improved in this compared to their fight, what, like 4 or 5 years ago? Maybe not quite that long ago. Maybe it was like 3 years ago, but yeah, Volkov looked much improved. And Gon just did not look great, and they gave the win to Gon, which kind of sucks because Volkov, that sets him up for a title shot against like a Tom Aspinall, a rematch with Aspinall, or the winner of John Jones and Aspinall if they end up fighting, or if, like I said, Aspinall if Jones doesn't end up fighting. So yeah, hopefully they do Volkov right and give him a big fight because he deserves it. Dana even said he got fucked, and Volkov deserves a big fight. And I guess with Gon, I mean, maybe do a rematch, 5 rounds with Volkov, or I guess Gon against Aspinall or Jones, whoever wins, or Aspinall if Jones doesn't fight. I really don't know what to do with that one. That was a shitty split decision. So yeah, I mean, Gon hasn't fought Aspinall, so that's ends up working out in the UFC's favor because it's a fresh fight. But I really thought Volkov won. I think everyone thought Volkov won. So hopefully the UFC does Volkov right. Let's see. So the last 2 fights of the night, Shavkat and Ian. This wasn't the most exciting fight. It was a lot of cage control. There was quite a few fights like this. A lot of cage control fights. Shavkat ended up edging it out 3 rounds to 2 against Ian. I think Ian landed the more significant strikes and did more in the fight, but Shavkat won the rounds. He had more control time in the rounds, but Ian was closer to finishing the fight. I think in this fight, Shavkat kind of loses a little bit of stock. Maybe not loses stock because he beat Ian. Ian's really good. So I don't think he loses stock, but I think he loses kind of his aura. Because everyone was saying he was going to go in there and finish Ian no problem. And I think he kind of loses that, 18-0 and 18 finishes. He kind of loses a little bit of aura going to a decision with Ian, and he definitely looked human. And I think Ian looked really good. I mean, Ian lost, but he went out there against Shavkat, and he won 2 rounds. He almost finished the fight. I mean, I thought he was going to finish the fight. Once he got the back, I thought he had the choke a couple of different times. And I had picked Ian to win. I thought he was going to edge out a decision. It was a really good fight. And honestly, I think Bilal beats both of them though. But yeah, I mean, Shavkat lost a little bit of aura, and I think Ian's stock went up in this fight. Ended up working out for them both, honestly. Shavkat gets his title shot, and Ian's stock went up. So I'm not too sure where you go with Ian after this. Maybe like Leon Edwards. I think that would be kind of a fun matchup. Or maybe the loser of Buckley and Covington. I think if Buckley edges that one out, Gary's definitely going to be calling for that Covington fight. He wanted that one before, so I think that would be a good matchup. Maybe Ian and the loser of Buckley and Covington. So I would say, that's where you go with Ian, and then obviously Shavkat's going to get that title shot against Bilal. But if Shavkat comes out and looks how he did against Ian against Bilal, I think that Bilal dominates him, honestly. I think he kind of puts it on him. I think Bilal's pace would be too much, and Bilal's grappling would be too much. And I think Ian has underrated grappling, but he also was able to defend the takedowns against Shavkat. It was the 3rd round before Shavkat actually got like a takedown out in the open against Ian. And if it takes 3 rounds to take down Ian, I just don't think that he's going to take down Bilal, honestly. And I think that Bilal wins those grappling exchanges, and I think with Bilal's pressure, he's able to win those striking exchanges possibly too. So I'm excited for that fight. I think it's going to be a good fight, but honestly, if Shavkat comes out looking how he did against Ian, and I know he came out and said he was injured, but that's happened the last 2 fights, and typically no one's fully healthy going into a fight, coming through like a 8 to 10 week training camp. So you know, it sucks that he had an injury, but if he comes in looking like that against Bilal, I think Bilal edges it out. If he comes in 100%, I think it's a really tough fight, but I still kind of think that Bilal edges it out, honestly. I think it's going to be a good fight, though, so I'm excited to see it. Hopefully, early next year, we'll see it. It's not like Shavkat took a bunch of damage. I know he did go in injured. Give him a couple months to heal up, maybe get it in the late first quarter next year, early second quarter. So, maybe 3, 4 months out. I think that would be pretty sweet. And yeah, on to the last fight of the night. We had Pantoja and Asakura, and I had Pantoja in this one, and Pantoja looked amazing. Asakura came out hot, threw a flying knee basically right off the bat. He didn't look like he had any of the like UFC jitters. Like I said, he came out hot, threw a flying knee right off the bat. He looked like he was feeling good all fight week, but I think Pantoja's pressure and grappling was just too much. and it just started to add up. And once Pantoja got the back, it's tough to get him off there. He's a backpack, and once he got that body triangle and got the back, it was all but over for sure. It's kind of how I saw it going down, was either a decision from Pantoja, either just kind of holding him down and controlling him, or if he was able to get the back, search for a submission. He was really good on the back. I ended up getting the back rear naked choke in round two. Super good performance. I'm not too sure. You'll probably go with like a Kai Kara France matchup here. I think he would be next because he just beat Raw Dog Royval, or maybe a Royval again. I mean, Moreno looked good. The flyweight division's just tough because the top five have all fought each other, and like Moreno, Royval, and Kai Kara France are all coming off. They're all coming off wins, but they've all lost to Pantoja at least once. Some of them two or three times as well. So Pantoja's kind of in a tricky spot. I think the UFC might have been hoping for an Asakura win here, kind of build up that card in Japan and spice up the flyweight division a little bit more. But Pantoja is just a dominant champion, and he's just beaten pretty much everyone inside the top 10. So I'll be curious to see where they go with that. He said he wants to stay in the flyweight division before this. He doesn't want to move up to 135, which is a breath of fresh air. So, keep defending his title at 125, maybe like a Kai Kara France matchup next, I think would be pretty fun. I think that might be where they go next. And yeah, other than that, that's about it. That's the it for 310. Next video, we'll go through the press conference for UFC 311, Marab and Umar and Saruzukian and Makachev. Go through the press conference and then just kind of the initial thoughts on that card. So have a great one.